one of the things that I have as a benefit is working at height, and that does make it quite obvious that you would ask what the worker is trying to do. You sat on a high structure, you do feel vulnerable sometimes, and you don't always, if you feel vulnerable, you wouldn't focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And if you can figure out what they're doing and you can make somebody comfortable and give them the information, the training, so that they're relaxed, then they get on with their job easier. And I think that's what I took from my work at height.
Welcome to HSS Training's In Conversation With series, where we sit down with top industry leaders for exciting discussions on their careers, the latest industry updates, and valuable insights into health, safety, and technical training. In this episode, we join HSS Training's Commercial Director, Andrew Smith, as he chats with Pete Ward, Managing Director of Spanset, about their exciting new joint venture, ClipStile, the latest in ladder safety innovation.
I think we're almost there with this product, Pete. It feels like we're getting really close. I think this is a culmination of several months' worth of effort between us. I mean, for me, it's really,
definitely.
Yeah. I think for me, it's really exciting because we've for a long time now been one of the leading providers of work at height training in the UK at HSS, but particularly around the safe use of ladders and step ladders. And I think last year we trained circa 7,500 people we saw come through the door, and hopefully we've made their workplace and their work activity safer. But we're really conscious that we could be doing more to kind of improve safety in the workplace. You look at the statistics, and I know you're fully aware of the statistics, Pete, that well over 30% of accidents and falls from height come as a result of a fall from a ladder. So I think at HSS we felt, and I don't want to sound all noble here, I suppose, but I think we felt obligated to do more than we were. And then selfishly for me, knowing that we've had a relationship for many years that can provide some really good quality solutions, it was something I wanted to revisit. But you've always been a tough act when it came to the secure ladder system to crack.
Well, I think we didn't really, we didn't know quite the best way to approach it, and we're not really directly involved in ladders, whereas you are, and that's sort of the benefit of a partnership, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you sort of see that side. I think we'd also looked at the products available, and they weren't really designed for ladders. They were more existing products that were put on the ladder. And I think that sort of meant that it wasn't really quite right. And I thought if we were going to do it for you, we had to do it properly. Yeah.
And we've got a track record, I think, of doing this well, these kind of projects. We've done similar work within the lift sector for elevators and lift shaft work. We did a great piece of work with the Outdoor Advertising Association that's now called Outsmart, and we're continuing to build on that relationship. But I think that was kind of a small foray into securing the ladders because they already had a partial system there that we kind of made some improvements to. But I think this is the first time we brought a product to the table that's, I think, unique.
That was very early, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And I think that the people that were doing it then, you could move them so far, but they weren't quite ready for a bigger step. And I think with this, what we've done is gone back and really looked at what they're doing on the ladder.
Sure.
That's the critical part, isn't it? It's finding out what the person really wants to do. And then once you've done that, then you can start to break down the problem.
And I think also the timing of this is really important because as leading members of the Ladder Association and working really closely with Peter Bennett at the LA and PASMA, the Prefabricated Access Suppliers and Manufacturers Association, he's at the forefront of safety there. And they're having a real push at the moment on standards of ladders that are coming into the UK. And I think there's a statistic out there that says something like 70% of ladders that are for sale on the likes of Amazon and Google and sites like this don't meet the industry standard for the UK. So for us to make sure the system that we've come up with together between us is suitable to go onto a ladder and doesn't stress that product in any way, I think has been really important. And I think working with the LA to make sure that we're endorsing that message of safety on the ladder is really important to us as well. And I think this is the first time we've seen our way clear to that, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really conscious that if you put too much load on the ladder, it just won't work. So the problem we'd thought with the ladder was that it's not designed for the loads that full rest equipment requires. So you've not got a proper anchor to start with. And then if you use it in certain ways where you want to get up to the top of the ladder, you can end up with the rope sort of lines passing over the top, and they double the load on the rungs.
This is an existing type of ladder system we're referring to here, yeah?
And they tend to put too big a load on in the first place. Sometimes they double the load by the configuration. They apply the load to the rung, which is the weakest part of the ladder. And so we thought it really needed a proper rethink and to try and go as high up the hierarchy as we could get so that it justifies it as a safe method, but then make sure that if we tested it, we could prove the ladder could cope with our system and our system could cope with the ladder. And so they both brought the best out in each other rather than the worst.
And the other thing that always concerned me with this, and I think something that this has overcome, was making it difficult for the operator, having to carry something up or having to install it in a really convoluted way to the ladder, which reduces the amount of ladder he can use or the way he can actually use the ladder to access his job. And then also restricting how he climbs the ladder as well, when there's a perfectly safe system for climbing ladders, which is 3 points of contact and away you go. So the fact we've addressed that here as well, which I'm sure you will come on to in a little bit, but that's been really important for me, that we don't impede the operator, one, in climbing safely, but also in being safe when he's doing his task as well. But not only safe, but making it easier for him to conduct his task. Yeah. And I think that does this by reducing a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? The inhibited way they have to work with the ropes and straps that are involved in other existing systems. I think the beauty of this, like always, is the complexity is almost in its simplicity, Pete, which is what you've brought to it again. That depth of knowledge that's made it so
focused
easy to
on the
operate.
problem they've got rather than focused on things we could achieve. Yeah. So we sort of we with the length of, where we've attached to the styles, so we know the style's the strongest bit. Hence the name.
We haven't said the name yet.
We haven't said the name, but we've called it ClipStile because we want people to clip the style.
Nice play on words.
We wanted to go for work positioning because we wanted to statically load it, so that puts the least load on the ladder, and it's just as similar to if you stood on the ladder, you get the same effect. We wanted to add a secondary so that if somebody was positioning, there was a backup in case the primary went. Rather than putting the secondary as a backup system, we thought it was better to actually have it equal to the primary. So you have two primary systems, which means that the safety factor on it goes up by 2. So we've doubled it. We've put the lowest load we can on, but we've doubled the safety factor. And that was a really nice thing to do because you felt that you could give people a really high level of security, but also the confidence to work on the ladder because it doesn't let you go outside the centre of gravity. It makes you feel really secure. The security, I think, is the bit I like.
It's been described as a docking station. That when you lock into it, it feels very secure, which I really liked. I think we both liked that phrase. It
almost sits out at the top of the ladder waiting for you to get there, and then you can just clip in. And I think that is really good.
And I think it is the top of the ladder, the actual ClipStile strap that we're introducing, that's the new bit. I think the concept of securing your ladder is generally well accepted in short duration work for ladders now, and I don't think that's really the revolutionary part, other than the system we use is beautifully
if it's
simple.
not stable, you're never going to go on the ladder in the first place, are you? But once you've stabilised it, you can then start to add equipment to it. So really the stability is just essential. If you haven't got that, whether it's feet on the ladder, whether it's strapping it back, if it's not stable, you shouldn't be on it in the first place. But once it's stable, we can do a little bit more with it. And the loads we're putting on it, because they're not dynamic loads, they're static loads, it means that whilst we've stabilised the ladder and secured it, it's not really disturbing the ladder that much. So it's quite minimal impact on the ladder. It sort of doesn't have a big effect on it.
Yeah, sure. And I think that the stabilising of the ladder is something the industry's does very well, actually. I think there's been a lot of focus on that.
Good progress on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's the operator at the top and bringing a load up to the operator in some way that still allows him to do short duration work. And I think it's important that I think we say this, Pete, that this doesn't replace where you can use guarded platforms. We'd recommend that over and above short duration ladder work if it's required. But
we do know people are doing
there's a place
works
for
on ladders where they're not protected. So because there isn't something really properly available that does it, they almost accept that it's a cheat to start with, and that's probably where some of the accident stats come from.
Good stuff. On lifting the kit, Pete, I think that was the other bit that was a real surprise, is just how much and how simple it is to bring a load to an operator. And I think that there's a lovely piece of innovation that I'm not sure that you'll get from our conversation here today, Pete, which is the lifting line and the small grab that you've managed to source and bring to the system.
It seemed quite obvious that once we'd encourage them to go and work up there, that they'd have to bring some kit up there to use. You can't have one without the other. So I was a bit worried at first that we'd created something that would actually encourage people to cheat. I think that was where we changed it round a little bit, and then thought, well, if we can do the 3 points of contact on the ladder, which is the safe way of working, but then if we could avoid them carrying the tools that they're going to need, then that climbing is perfect. And if you could put your kit in place before you go up, so you could do it from the bottom and park it there,
even better.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, sure.
And it means then you climb unencumbered. You get to the top, your stuff's waiting for you. If you want to go back down again to get to have a break or something like that, then you can leave your tools up there and they're still waiting for you when you go back. You don't have to keep carrying things back up and down. So I think people are like that as a convenience. And the side effect is that they climb better, and then when they're there, they're more secure. Yeah.
And I think the other clever thing is it doesn't lose any of the height, the work capability of a ladder, because it can go right to the top of the ladder.
Yeah.
It's very safe to say you're maximising your operating
because
range.
we've used that last gap between the rungs, you can't push it off the top.
Yeah.
It sort of gives you that benefit that you can move it up or down a little bit. It'll choke onto the stiles, so you can set the height so that you're straight-legged, you're in a nice, comfortable position. Yeah. I think people will like it.
No, I do too. I mean, we've had a little bit of an introduction to some of our larger customers that have had a look at this, and it was overwhelmingly well received, I think. And it's been hard tested in the field as we speak by people who are capable of challenging it, if you like, with a good response. So we've got some feedback forms out there to try and garner some better feedback. But the overall response so far has been that of, we very much like this for its simplicity. Yeah. It's so easy to use.
I like the trial, when we did the trial where we had a 64-year-old guy sort of go and have a go on it to sort of see what he felt, followed by
a very young lady,
who was sort of like 20, who sort of wasn't used to it. Neither of them really natural manual workers, but both of them had a go.
And I think the thing that stood out for me there is watching them connect from the belt to the lanyard that's on the ladder was very intuitive. None of them struggled to do that. And I think that was the bit that gave me the most satisfaction, how simple it was for them to use it and engage with it.
Sometimes when you make a product, it's the little details that make it really nice. And on this, we used colour coding on some of it, but the hooks are sort of designed so that they can be clipped backwards, so that they fit in your hand to clip the belt.
And you've always put the quality in your products where the operator handles it, haven't you?
Little bits, yeah.
To make it Gucci for the user.
Same with the lifting bag, making it so that it's the shape of a drill or a hand tool, so you can get your kit in it easily. You need to open wide enough so you can see it. The ladder strap, the securing strap in a nice high-vis bag so that you don't trip across it.
But you always get me every time. And you've even made that so that if it is wet in any way, it'll just naturally drain away and breathe and dry by putting a gauze in the bottom of the bag. I mean, that's just genius.
It doesn't ever rain in Britain, does it?
No, of course not. Yeah, it's bone dry all the while. But that's a lovely touch. Things like that make it a much more pleasurable bit of kit for the operator to handle and use on a daily basis.
It should also come, this is a trial kit. This is the final trial kit for you to see. But when it's done, it should have a QR code on it. Okay. So if you're at work and you wanted to scan it, you'd be able to pick up the details of it.
Yeah. What will that cover, Pete? Will that cover safe installation, climbing?
You can have a small video link on it. Can have the instructions for the products, certification. We can load really anything we'd like between us. It could have a link to the training that you do, so that it encourages people to keep current. I think the QR code is just that link to smartphones that everybody's got and everybody appreciates.
We're coming away from the paper world very quickly, aren't we? So it makes it a lot slicker to use.
Yeah, it means you can get a bit of best practice in amongst it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Good stuff.
So what I really liked about this project was that you've been pecking away at me for years about this, and I didn't have the time, and I didn't really think that I knew we would have to really focus on it because we would want to do it properly. And when you talked to me this time and you were telling me how much ladder training you did, and I realised that if we came up with something good, it could work.
Yeah.
I suppose you got me at a moment of weakness, and I accepted
the first time
it.
in the 20 odd years we've known each other that I caught you at a moment of weakness. But I think you identified the opportunity and the time was right.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, over the years it is more than. I mean, congratulations, I should say, because this is your 25th year.
Thank you very much.
Rising to the
And
dizzy
25 years of us both knowing each other.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think that's more important.
Yeah.
But so between us, we've got some 53 years of working in this industry. And I think over that time, what's been a real success story for me is being able to bring valued clients to Spanset, knowing your only agenda is to make them safer at work. And I think that's...
we just love a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't get that many challenges unless you've got good contacts. And what you tended to do is bring me things that... You once said to me that the customers that you bring in are always worried because they've got some concern, and it's sort of quite a big worry or a big risk to them. And when you bring them in the door, you sort of said to me once that we instantly relax and we sort of say, yeah, that's no problem. But that's because they've given us something that's our pet subject.
And you taught me a long time ago, and something that stayed with me for a long time is that work at height is work at height. It's the application that changes.
Yeah.
And that's the bit where you can be smarter.
Yeah.
And that understanding of work at height and how comprehensive you understand that enables you to do new projects like ClipStile and to bring this to the market in a comprehensive way. But moreover, for me, as somebody bringing a client, you're absolutely right. I can sit back very comfortably knowing that not only have I got a trusted partner who's got my interests at heart, but moreover, as I say, the client's best interests as well, which is that you understand, like I do, that the relationship brings the financial rewards eventually. We don't have to worry about that. The commercial side almost takes care of itself to some degree.
Oh, yeah.
It's giving them something they need and being a trusted partner to them. And I think some of those relationships that we've alluded to in the lift sector and the outdoor media are 15, 16 years now where we've kept that relationship going. Which
the long term, aren't they?
Yeah, it's
I think
great.
From my point, one of the things that I have as a benefit is working at height, and that does make it quite obvious that you would ask what the worker is trying to do. If you sat on a high structure, you do feel vulnerable sometimes, and you don't always, if you feel vulnerable, you wouldn't focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And if you can figure out what they're doing and you can make somebody comfortable and give them the information, the training so that they're relaxed, then they get on with their job easier. Yeah. And I think that's what I took from my work at height. But then when you introduce to me a client, all you've got to figure out is what his priorities are, or hers. Once you've done that, then you can make quite a nice solution. Often it's not something new that you need to create. You might be able to just use conventional items in a different way that suits them. But in this case, I think we needed to create something a little bit more special. And that's probably why I avoided it for a little while.
I think you're right, because a lot of the systems that were out there seem to bring together component parts from other pieces of equipment and stuff, which I think has made it clunky and disjointed.
Yeah.
But moreover, we alluded to earlier on about the safety of ladders themselves. And I think that some of these systems can adversely load these ladders in the event of an accident or a fall. And I think this is why you're right. This needed something bespoke and tailored specifically to not only the ladder, but the operator as well.
Sympathetic to the ladder, but meant you could do what you wanted. When you're working, if you're trying to balance on a ladder and you're worried about your own safety, that's different to being secure and having both your hands available to work with. That's a big difference. What I really like is that when you climb, we accept that you can climb safely with 3 points of contact. But if you use the ClipStile, when you get to the top, you get another 2 points. So you actually go up to 4 points and you get both your hands to work with.
Absolutely.
That's got to be good for people.
But it was interesting as well working with you and watching you work with your development team, how the kit evolved quite quickly. Yeah. And we were, I suppose, as we normally are, we were quite impatient as a business and pushed you. But
it takes a bit of time.
You held us up because, rightly so, because it evolved quite quickly, didn't it, in different ways. So that was...
You reveal another problem, don't you? Because the being able to work at the top was really good, but then realising that people might carry awkward bits of tools and equipment up, and we didn't really want them having an accident climbing because they were carrying stuff to get to the top or doing too many things with their hands.
But that's one of the things as well that I always kind of take for granted now, and I shouldn't do, is that your incredible facilities up at Cheshire that you have there allow you to manufacture, test, get products rated. And I think that's also quite unique, that we can take something from I think literally the first time we ever did the secure ladder strap, we drew it on a dry whiteboard in your office, and within literally hours, we were looking at a version of, albeit a crude version, so we could start to get more of a concept of how it would work. And that combination of the knowledge and the facility and then the outlet, I think, is where this is a great relationship. And it enables us to do these great things for the sectors that we're addressing.
I think as well, we looked at how we could get the strength out of it, because testing it was quite important to make sure it was strong enough. So we wanted a strength of roughly 22 kilonewtons on the belt. We got sort of over 30 just by configuration, which was quite nice. But then we looked at other parts and thought, how could we test them? So we've tested them on solid state ladders, which are not really where it's intended for, because that really pushes the product. And we did some really aggressive drop tests on that. And then we did applications on, or tests on, the real extension ladders that we're going to use. And so one test was to test our product, the other was to test the ladder. And with you saying about the ladders, maybe imported ladders, less sort of scrutiny on how good they were or how high quality we were. We didn't want our system to be pushing the limits of the ladder. We wanted it to be well within the ladder scope. And it is, and I think that's where it is,
I think the other thing as well, we've got operators that are multitasking out in the field. And, we're also the biggest provider of the IPATH certification, the International Powered Access Federation. I think a lot of people, end users, will wear a full body harness for mutes, for roof access, man-safe systems, etc. And I think it's important to point out that although we're operating with a belt in this instance, where we're addressing specifically a ladder user, this can be part of a two-point harness where you have the side attachments.
It's almost the minimum you can have is the belt, but you can use it as just the belt. There's no reason because there's no fall. It's a fall prevention system. It's work positioning. It means you don't need the full body harness for this application, but you could link it in, and then you could have the perfect harness that you put on because the belt's got gear loops. You could hang small tools and things off there if you wanted, and it would mean that you'd got a belt for that, but you'd also got full body harness for using a mute with a short lanyard. So I think you can get everything, and then you could go to work and you could do as much as you can off a tower or a platform or a mobile platform, and then if you have to use a ladder for part of it, then you can fill in the gap, but you can be protected on all of it.
And you say it's sort of the bare minimum. I think the other thing it might be a little crass to mention the commercials of the thing, but it's so cost effective to keep it to the minimum as well. I think a lot of people who already have work at height personal protective equipment won't balk at just having this kit as another item with that. It's not hundreds of pounds like some of these systems, so it makes it very affordable.
One thing that I really liked, because we had a few epiphanies, we had a couple of eureka moments on it. One was doing the dual work position points, but the other one was thinking that people had to carry the kit somehow to work, so putting it in a bag, but making that bag a rated lifting bag, so you could take your kit out, and once you've got your kit on and you put it on the ladder, then you've got something to lift the tools in. And rather than carrying two things, you make the most out of one thing. So you get your money back a bit more, don't you?
Yeah, it's a multi-use thing there for you.
Yeah, evolution.
So for us, I think it wasn't the plan, but I think it's kind of really nicely falling that we're looking to kind of really give this a proper launch around the No Falls Week. We're doing a lot of work with Dave Thomas from the No Falls Foundation. Yourself in particular, Pete, you've introduced us to Dave, a very influential character in the work at height industry for many years, both with the HSE and now with No Falls. So we're really proud at HSS in our partnership with Spansec to be able to support that week and deliver what I think is going to be an innovative product that will change the way people will work on ladders. And I think if you're working on ladders, you've got to get a look at this. I think and it's really important to see. It'll change your safe systems of work for me.
Yeah, and Dave's always been really influential on me. I've known him for 30 years. He's always been somebody through HSE that's pushed us to sort of aim high. Sort of my motivations have always been from sort of working at height that if you can prevent people from hitting the floor, it's a massive plus, and that's the driver for me. It's a bit crude, but it is my driver. And working with people like Dave, he always is good to critique things because he makes you go that extra mile and make sure you've got the detail. And it's normally the detail that makes the difference. I think this product's got the detail in, and I think it's a real nice collaboration.
I agree.
That's the best bit.
We're planning to have some roadshows around the country, and I think you'll join us on those, which I think is that opportunity to bring people to it, even for a short duration, to try this, get hands-on and experience it in a safe environment. With both of our joint instructor, our trainer fraternity there to give guidance and support on how to use it. I think that hands-on bit will be really important, but I think that will be a big contribution towards that week for No Falls.
Yeah, feeling how easy it is to climb and then to clip, feeling that you don't feel you've not got lots of gear on, so you don't feel you're wearing too much. But then clipping in's really easy. The fact that you can park the equipment there ready, the fact that it's waiting. I think all these little bits people will turn onto it quite quickly.
I think the only thing for me that I was always unsure about, and you might put me straight again here, Pete, is the actual fixing for the securing of the ladder. And I think there's so many ways and so many things you have to fix to or into. I think to dictate or determine a certain eye bolt or a fixing would have been the wrong choice.
Well, it could be that you used a sling maybe around a piece of structure.
Yeah.
You could use of fixing like a bolt into concrete, maybe a screw-in fixing, because the actual loads aren't very big.
No.
So I think the problem we had was if you try and pigeonhole people down one way, it's never going to work. And I think that the sort of people I'd like to use this are the people that don't currently use any system, and you persuade them that now there's something available that's actually quite easy, that makes your life easier to work. Safety aid shouldn't be an encumbrance or something that holds you back. It should be something that makes your life easier, helps you get on with the job better, helps you go home quicker, helps you do more, makes your life better, makes it safer.
I think you may have hit on something there. Choke. Fits it very nicely in this kit.
Yeah.
So that's something as it continues to evolve, it'll get better and better. No, I think ClipStile is going to be something really important for 2025 and beyond. I really do.
I look forward to it, and I look forward to seeing who uses it and their reactions. That's the proof in the pudding.
Absolutely. So, Pete, ClipStile, I think this is the main component piece that people won't be familiar with, and the bit that's used all your clever Naughtons and your team's many years of experience to develop. And I think when the guys come to install, this is probably the first thing I'll do is put this onto the ladder they're going to use, ready to use. But
extend the ladder one rung.
One rung.
You can just choke it round from the rear.
When you say choke it round, these are the choking points that...
Simply thread the hook through. Doesn't matter which way through. If you can get it through, if you can get the hook through the loop and it's gone round the stile, that's it.
You're done.
The bigger sling goes right round the back of the ladder, so that gives you an extra backup to both of the chokes, but you've got two chokes, one on either stile.
So these are separately rated.
Each is separate, completely separate to each other,
well.
and then you've got a backup to each of them. Lovely. So they both back up each other, but also there's a backup around the whole lot.
And it's nice that this is clearly identified as
clearly coloured with a bit of wear sleeving so that it gives it longevity. Nice hooks that are really easy to use, a double action. They're easy to clip into the belt. They fit in the palm of your hand.
And the way these are supported, we'll probably see this later, but they actually present themselves.
Stick out from the ladder like the docking station.
So as you arrive, your belt,
waiting,
which we'll look at in a second, is literally just sat there, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Let's have a look at the belt. So I think that people are familiar with belts in work at height. Those who've been in work at height are familiar with belts. But the first thing that stands out at me at this one, Pete, and I'm not just...
Put a fast buckle on it, but it's nice and shaped for your back.
But the look of it, Pete, it's really attractive.
Yeah, it's a really nice looking belt.
Yeah, I mean, I get quite excited about techie stuff, and I'm quite geeky like you, but it's also very cosmetically appealing as well, not only in terms of the colour scheme, the clever tool belts that you've used that match up everywhere. It's a nice thing to wear, isn't it?
Yeah, if you get something that's nice to wear, you're more likely to use it, aren't you? So
agreed.
I think it needed to be quite light, quite flexible, supportive on the back, so good pad. Fast buckle makes it easy to use. It's feature rich.
It doesn't feel like webbing, it feels like fabric, and the buckle being a fast buckle but anodised as well. All this is protected from the weather and the elements. Really nice.
And then the other two parts, the hauling system, that allows you to put it onto the ladder. There's a small sling on it, so you can put the sling over the top of the ladder. That puts the grab just at the top, so the way you'd want it. and then you can haul from the bottom. So you could put it on before you put the ladder up. You can haul from the bottom, so you could use the hook on it to clip an item of equipment or a sling round a piece of maybe a bracket you're installing or something like that. And then the other option is putting things in the bag, and you can clip the bag on.
What about sort of loads on this and inspection, Pete?
We've thought of it as a load rating of about 15 kilos. So when we launch it, we'll give you a rating. The bag will have its actual rating on.
And that'll be marked up on the product.
It'll be marked up. So it's a proper rated bit of lifting equipment for personal equipment, light tools and small equipment.
Yeah. This is much greater than the sum of its parts.
That's very nice, clever, because it's got a pulley to make it smooth to haul, but then it's really easy to engage the cleat on it from either the bottom, or if you're right next to it at the top and you're lowering off, it's really easy. But you can do it from both.
And it isn't difficult to do from the ladder. It kind of sits just below your natural hand position, but it's very easy to bring stuff to your work position.
Yeah. And the bag, it was quite important to get the bag so it was easy to clip in. It would contain your tools, but it would also open up when you were working, so you could put your hand in to maybe pick out fixings or small things, but it would also contain bigger things like a drill. So we shaped it quite specifically so it was longer and thinner for hand tools.
And when it presents itself, as you rightly say, it kind of opens, almost gapes, doesn't it? So
and waits for you to do your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. And then we've already talked about just the simple ladder strap that goes around the bottom, which is really simplistic. But again, like all these wonderful things, the simplicity is in its and
it follows a similar mentality in that it chokes around the ladder.
Yeah.
It uses a cam buckle because we're really keen that you didn't put too much load on the ladder, so you don't deform the ladder in any way.
And you alluded to this earlier on with the anchor point. It doesn't need a massive amount of force.
Just
it's
needs
literally
enough
what you can
to
apply by
choke
hand.
on.
Yeah.
And the high vis of the bag means that if you leave the ladder against the wall while you're not there, people can see that there's a strap in between the walls, so it sort of
stays
stops
in
people.
view, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives a bit of visibility to it.
Lovely. And you've got two hooks on this. You can triangulate, or
you could do a rhombus shape out of it. If you put two anchors in, you could get more of a rhombus shape, or you could have it as a V to the wall.
Doesn't create any greater stability, does it? Really, it's just
different.
Gives you more access to anchor points.
Yeah, and you might find that in some cases you put the anchor straight in front, or you've got an anchor straight in front. But if you've got a run of anchors along a wall, you might pick up two because neither one's in exactly the perfect.
I was just trying to think of an example: bottom of a bus shelter where
or a big hoarding or something like that. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's lovely. Well, hopefully we'll get to see that in a little bit more detail, and we can demonstrate it actually on a ladder to make it a bit clearer and show people how that works.
And I think putting it all in the lift bag at the end means that when people are trying to get from their van or their vehicle to where they're working, that's always the biggest problem. You have too much stuff in your hands, and you really need it to be in one clean bag. So the fact that it's the lift bag and the carry bag is quite nice.
It's really good. So we've come to a natural thing where we're ready to launch here, Pete, but do you think this is it? Do you think, how could that evolve? Again, it feels to me like we've kind of come up with a really solid product, but
but it's but what we've done is targeted a specific action on the ladder. So there will be some things on the ladder that people will do that they think this doesn't fit. We've had one guy talk to us about reaching the wall from the ladder. He wanted to be slightly further away, and he thought we needed to make the strap slightly longer. What we've figured out is that he could put the strap lower down so that he was on a rung further out and actually have the ladder higher up.
Yeah.
So there'll be things like that will come out of teaching and technique. Then the other thing is we might find some other applications where we evolve the product a little bit more.
Yeah.
But if you never put the first product out, then how do you gain any experience or get any examples of what other people need? So I think there's quite a way to go with this. But then we could also do some other projects.
I'm going to say I think that the whole concept of how this came about was driven by a desire to make the industry safer. But I think if there's people that have got issues and concerns, this acts as a really good, I suppose, an example of how collaboration and sharing your issues with...
You've got to have enough access to end users, haven't you?
Yeah.
If you don't have enough access to people using the equipment, you don't get any feedback of what's going on. But then as a manufacturer, we're just not in the position like you are to meet enough people. Yeah. But if you introduce us to the right people, then we can solve the problems. So that's the thing. It is a collaboration. We're different businesses. We've got different priorities, but what we do is complement each other.
Absolutely. And from my perspective, the big thing for anybody that's listened to this today would be to say that if there's an opportunity for us to engage with you to bring a project like this to the fore, then that's the kind of conversations we'd like to have as a joint venture, isn't it, to try and drive things forward.
If you do get a good solution,
standards.
you can most definitely get that feeling that you make a difference to people, that workers will go home instead of not go home. Like No Falls Foundation's a great foundation because it's saying prevent them, but the problem is you can't prevent every fall. What you can do is you can maybe prevent some of the frequency of it, but the other thing that we can do, which we're sort of really focused on, is preventing the consequences of it. This one will, because it stops a fall occurring by suspending you, so it treats it head on. But there's other things that we've done in the past where we can reduce the distance people fall, or put in rescue solutions, and more of these things come up.
Yeah. I think the other thing is we're talking there quite a lot. We mentioned No Falls a few times. It's obviously a national thing that's taking place.
Great initiative.
It's a fantastic, but I don't think we've ever had between us more of an outreach for areas of delivery either. We're growing our networks between us. I know you've recently made some acquisitions that are giving you a bigger outreach with your facilities as well. So not only is that shared resource, but we're both building our own network of centres and facilities. So this is something that's available to everybody truly nationally. So hopefully that's something else that's going to help with the No Falls Foundation. It isn't unique to Spanset's location or to any one HSS location. So.
And I think it's always a crossover, because people will do courses like ladder courses, then they'll do more specific things with us like a rescue course. But really a worker wants the full package. They don't want just one aspect of it. And I realise we're quite specialist, that you're able to bring together a more rounded package for people. That's what they need.
But it needs your support.
But it works together, doesn't it?
Long may it continue.
Yeah.